I call this meeting to order. So I'd like to welcome everyone to meeting number 14 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Health. The committee is meeting today pursuant to Standing Order 106 sub 4 as requested by 4 members of the committee to discuss their request to undertake a study of all matters related to Canada's COVID-19 vaccination strategy. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of January 25th, 2021, and therefore members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. So you are aware, the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. Today's meeting is also taking place in a new webinar format.
Monsieur le Président, excusez-moi, il n'y a pas de traduction depuis au moins 4 phrases.
Excuse me, there is no more interpretation?
Are you getting translation now?
À l'instant, oui.
Right now I am.
Not sure where I left off. So you are aware the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. Today's meeting is also taking place in a new webinar format. Webinars are for public committee meetings and are available only to members, their staff, and witnesses. Members may have remarked that the entry to the meeting was much quicker and that they immediately entered as an active participant. All functionalities for active participants remain the same. Staff
Point of order,
will be...
Mr. Chair, on that point. Point of order.
Yes?
The raise hand function does not work, and I would like my hand to be noted. I would like to be on the speaking order. The raise hand function in the update does not work.
I was just going to say the same thing, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I see a couple of, the clerk raised hand is working. Could you try that again? Okay, well, we'll have to work without that particular functionality. I shall continue.
So, Chair, on that point of order, I'd like to be recognized first to speak. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Rempel, after you will be first to speak. It is to move your motion when the time comes. Anyway, so I will let hopefully the technical staff will be able to address this problem with the hand raise function. I shall continue with the housekeeping matters here. So all functionalities for active participants remain the same, which may or may not be correct in the current circumstances. Staff will be non-active participants only and can therefore only view the meeting in gallery view. I would like to take this opportunity to remind all participants to this meeting that screenshots or taking photos of your screen is not permitted. Given the ongoing pandemic situation and in light of the recommendations from health authorities to remain healthy and safe, all those attending the meeting in person are to maintain a 2-meter physical distancing, must wear a non-medical mask when circulating in the room, and it is highly recommended that the mask be worn at all times, including when seated. Must maintain proper hand hygiene using the provided hand sanitizer at the room entrance. As a chair, I will be enforcing these measures for the duration of the meeting, and I thank members in advance for their cooperation. For those participating virtually, I would like to outline a few rules to follow. Members and witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. Interpretation services are available for the meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. With the latest Zoom version, you may now speak in the language of your choice without the need to select the corresponding language channel. You will also notice that the platform's raise hand feature is now in a more easily accessed location on the main toolbar should you wish to speak or alert the chair. And on that point, I note that I don't see that particular functionality either. For members participating in person, proceed as you usually would when the whole committee is meeting in person in a committee room. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you are on a video conference, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. Those in the room, your microphone will be controlled as normal by the Proceedings and Verification Officer. A reminder that all comments by members and witnesses should be addressed through the chair. When you're not speaking, your mic should be on mute. And with regard to a speaking list, the committee clerk and I will do the best we can to maintain a consolidated order of speaking for all members, whether they are participating virtually or in person. Okay, before we start, I'd like to make a couple of comments regarding the letter that requested this meeting. Firstly, the letter decries that it has been 45 days since the previous meeting. I find this kind of odd since this is a normal inter-session interval that happens every year at this time. Nothing unusual or remarkable about it. The letter continues on to say that we are, quote, we are deeply concerned that you have chosen not to call a meeting during the committee's next regularly scheduled time slot. We expect the House of Commons to adopt a motion to renew the provisions which empower committees to meet virtually. There is no reason this meeting cannot occur. End quote. I should point out that as at the start of the scheduled start of the meeting this morning, there was in fact no such motion available. So the committee was not in fact empowered to meet at the prescribed time. There's also no clear expectation as to when such an authorization might be achieved, given that the state of the discussions last week were somewhat in a state of flux. And it seems to me unreasonable to bring the House staff, bring the committee staff, and set up witnesses who might sit there and hang all day waiting for such approval that might not come. I think it would be totally irresponsible to have declared called a meeting in those circumstances. This impediment is in fact acknowledged in the letter, which carries on to say, quote, if the House does not adopt an order to empower this committee to meet safely, we will rescind our request to hold this meeting. So I'd like to point out that this meeting was called on an erroneous pretext. Nevertheless, no such pretext is in fact required to call such a meeting. All that is required is the signature of 4 members and a stated reason for holding the meeting, and that is met. So here we are. Let me say that I certainly welcome the opportunity to bring forward ministers at this time. I think it's very timely. It's very important. However, I have some concerns that the motion as proposed is not receivable. So I'd like to explain why I have those concerns and follow up with some suggestions on how I think they could be addressed. I note that the House motion of October 26 states that the Standing Committee on Health be instructed to undertake a study on the emergency situation facing Canadians in light of the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that this study evaluate, review, and examine any issues relevant to this situation, such as, but not limited to, and then it proceeds to enumerate a few examples. I contend that this requires us that any study, any receipt of information and witness testimony on COVID-19 related matters is subject to this motion, and I think that is inherent in the request for the meeting itself today. That having been the case, I'm troubled with where to fit this particular request in that structure. The most obvious place to fit that is paragraph small lowercase b, which says that within 7 days after all documents have been tabled pursuant to paragraph double lowercase a, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Public Services and Procurement, the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, and the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry be ordered to appear separately as witnesses before the Standing Committee on Health for at least 3 hours each. The problem with fitting into that is that it's triggered only upon receipt of all documents requested in the previous, or noted in the previous paragraph. As we know from correspondence received from the Privy Council office and the office of the law clerk, there are some millions of pages of documents in the offing, a substantial portion, a majority of them, of course, requiring translation. And this will, of course, involve a considerable amount of work, a considerable amount of time. It will also tax the capabilities of the law clerk's office in order to vet them for appropriate redactions and to prioritize, in fact, according to our previous request of the House. This means that when this paragraph double B could be triggered is indeterminate. And I suggest that is a problem that we might want to rectify at this point. Failing the application of paragraph lowercase double b, the paragraph T of that order specifies that each party represented on the committee be entitled to select one witness per 1 hour witness panel and 2 witnesses per 2 hour witness panel. And as we know, protocol and custom, ministers typically will attend in conjunction with other ministers and staff, but not at the same time as other witnesses. This kind of means that paragraph T of that order cannot be met by this requirement or by this motion. So in order to address those particular concerns, I would suggest to Ms. Rempel-Garner that she might consider when she moves a motion to firstly to incorporate a provision to report to the House and request to change paragraph double B from within 7 days after all documents to simply documents. And secondly, I would suggest that she should indicate in the motion that the invitation to ministers be pursuant to paragraph double B of the House motion of October 26, and providing the House grants concurrence to the indicated report requesting to change paragraph double B, as well as changing the time in the request to 3 hours in today's motion, or drop the time entirely because it is actually encompassed in paragraph BB in any case. So that is my main point regarding the receivability of this. But I would also suggest that the second bullet of this particular proposed motion is not needed, and I would suggest that you omit it. The last meeting on the on mental health aspects of COVID-19 is currently scheduled for Friday coming up. This provision of this motion would simply move that to Monday, and I frankly, by Monday we could have that whole matter done and dusted. So I think that it would be a good idea, and I would suggest that she just omit that particular requirement. The last point is I would suggest that the third point in this motion is in part redundant to the extent that it duplicates some aspects of Mr. Davies' motion of November 13, and to some extent seeks to overturn it. Although that is to the extent that the previous point on the mental health motion or mental health meeting is or is not retained as it stands. So I would suggest in this case that when she moves the motion, she change this aspect merely to specify how many meetings between 1 and 4 inclusive for Mr. Davies' motion that to specify for the vaccine portion of the study. That having been said, I will open the floor to Ms. Rempel-Garner to move her motion as she pleases.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to perhaps clarify some information that the Chair provided as Vice Chair. The meeting that we are currently undertaking as the Standing Committee on Health, which I should note is happening during the middle of a pandemic, which has caused many deaths in Canada and great economic burden on millions of Canadians. the meeting that we're happening is happening under the auspices of something called Standing Order 1064. And this is a provision, it's a procedural provision that allows members of the committee to call a meeting in order to consider business that might be of pressing urgency for the committee. So the notice that was provided to the committee, which precipitated this meeting, was done because of a very urgent situation that is facing the country right now. And that is the fact that many other countries around the world are receiving doses of what could arguably be described as the hottest commodity on the planet, the life-saving Pfizer vaccine. But Canada is not, even though the government provided assurances to Canadians that this would be happening. This is something the government likely should have anticipated, given that they were briefed by the pharmaceutical company throughout the fall, and that production scale-ups happen when there's a new product. So the origin of this meeting is to determine why Canada, or is to hopefully move a motion to determine why Canada is not receiving these vaccines right now. And this is something that I hope that regardless of political stripe, we could put aside our differences and agree that this is something that at this present moment, the Standing Committee on Health should be investigating. Now, why did we use Standing Order 1064? The chair asserts that there's nothing remarkable about this situation, that, that we 45 days passed, that this is, the standard period of time that committees don't sit over the holidays. But this is exactly why 1064 exists. I would argue that something remarkable has happened, and that's that dozens of people are dying in our country every day from a virus that could be prevented if people were administered a vaccine. So I just find that characterization that bureaucracy and pedantry should come in the way of a parliamentary committee who's tasked with the mandate of health during a pandemic should somehow be unremarkable that it's not meeting is slightly problematic. The second thing is that Parliament resumed on Monday. And for those who are watching, that this might sort of be inside baseball for people, our committee typically meets on Mondays and Fridays. The thing is that there was no meeting called by the chair for this Monday. And when I saw that last week, I was concerned, because what that means is that the committee would have not met for business today, which meant we wouldn't meet until Friday, and we would have had a meeting called by the Liberals, and then we wouldn't probably have an opportunity to call the Ministers of Health or Procurement to talk about a vaccine shortage that is literally killing people for some time to come in the future. And I think that Canadians deserve better than that. And that's why we put this request forward. So I just think that we need to put aside bureaucratic arguments about why the committee isn't meeting and start meeting the needs of our constituents. That's what this committee is for, is to actually hold the government to account on its decisions. Now, the chair has put forward a bunch of reasons why we should be editing this motion and why it could fit under this statute or that this motion or that motion. The reality is the committee has the ability to change its mandate and change its tasks as it sees fit, as the government often reminds us when we ask questions about committees in the House, when the government manages to put things through that they find beneficial. So in this situation, I think it's important to remind the chair, colleagues, that we are facing a monumental challenge in this country, and that we do need to have answers on why we have a vaccine shortage, and more importantly, what the government is going to do to fix it, because that's the only hope that we can offer Canadians right now. And it's of, I would say, the greatest significance. This is probably the greatest thing that Parliament is doing right now, what we're discussing. That's the gravity of this, right? We need to do this. So I think I would be very uncomfortable going back to my constituents and trying to read a lot of wordy procedure as to why we couldn't invite the health minister or the Minister of Procurement, who is responsible for getting Canada vaccine, to the health committee today. So I actually don't accept any of the rationale that the chair tried to put forward with regard to how I should edit my motion. The motion I'm about to put forward is in the best interest of all Canadians. It still allows the Liberals to proceed with the meetings that they've put forward. It gives the Liberals actually the opportunity to decide whether or not they want to proceed with a meeting that was agreed to in an entirely different context 6 weeks ago before we were in a shortage of the vaccine that other countries aren't in right now. And that's really going to be up to the Liberals' choice. I'm going to work that into the wording of the motion. But I do think it's important that we, given the shortage and given that we need answers for Canadians, and Canadians need to know when exactly they're going to be able to get a vaccine. Provinces need to know when vaccines are going to arrive so that they can plan to deliver it, that we consider the motion as I put it forward in that letter. And Chair, I think that my instinct would be, should you rule it out of order, that I would be challenging your ruling for all of the reasons that I just gave you. We have to do this, and you know it. Every Canadian is depending on this committee to do this type of review. There's nothing more than we have doctors on this committee, and we need to get to the bottom of this, and we need a path forward. So with that, Chair, I move that this committee invite the Minister of Health, the Minister of Procurement, and their officials to appear before committee for no less than 2 hours each regarding all matters related to Canada's COVID-19 vaccination strategy, and that this meeting occur no later than February 5th, 2021. That in accordance with a motion previously passed by the committee, the clerk of the committee be instructed to schedule the final agreed upon 4th meeting regarding the Liberals selected mental health theme of COVID-19 of the COVID-19 study during the committee's regularly scheduled meeting on February 1st, 2021, unless the Liberal members of the committee elect to forego this meeting in favor of beginning meetings on the next theme of the committee's COVID-19 study, that the committee select its next theme of the COVID-19 study in the agreed upon manner set out in the original motion, with this next theme being selected by the Conservative members of the committee, with the Conservative members selecting the theme of all matters related to Canada's COVID-19 vaccination strategy, and that the first meeting of this theme commence at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the committee after February 1st, 2021. That is February 5th, 2021. Unless the Liberal members of the committee elect to forego the last meeting in the prior theme per the option outlined above, and that parties shall submit witnesses to the clerk for these 4 meetings pertaining to vaccines no later than January 28, 2021 at 4 p.m. Eastern. So again, just to colleagues who are considering how to vote on this motion, every one of you has communities that are under lockdown right now. For those of you who are in Quebec, your community is under curfew. Many of you have long-term care facilities in your riding. I know I have colleagues who have emailed me where they've had a variant go through their long-term care facility, and 40 plus people have died in recent days. Long-term care facility, frontline healthcare workers calling in tears, saying, when am I getting my vaccine? Or in some cases, some people have received 1 dose of the vaccine and they're not sure when they're going to get the second. And if it's delayed for a certain period of time, what that means for their health, or if it's going to work. Provincial governments asking the government, like, we can't deliver what we don't have. And look, guys, there are times when we will fight on this committee. There are times where we are going to disagree on policy, but this motion is very reasonably laid out. It gives the Liberals the option of proceeding on Friday per the schedule that we had before Christmas, before all of this happened. That's really up to the Liberal Party. I didn't want to fight you guys on that. Okay, it's up to you. We give you the choice. But there is no situation in which the Liberals can argue that the Ministers of Health and Procurement should not be coming before the Federal Standing Committee on Health within the next couple of weeks to answer these questions, because every day that we go without having them and without getting these details and just hearing more platitudes is another day that people are getting infected, that healthcare workers are, have stress and anxiety, that we're under curfew, that we're under lockdown, that we have the Foreign Affairs Minister floating the idea of the Emergencies Act. Our country needs to get this together. And for those of you who perhaps this is your first term in Parliament, or you haven't had a situation like this is real. And this is why this committee exists. It exists to get these type of answers. So should this motion pass, what it's saying is we're going to start the next theme of the study either next week or on Friday, depending on what the Liberal Party wants to do. Up to you. Mental health is important. Vaccines are important. Over to you guys. Then we're also inviting the ministers that are responsible for getting Canada's vaccine to committee to get some answers. How are we getting through this, right? I just had I'll be very honest with you guys, a devastatingly terrible panel on CTV National News with one of the Liberal colleagues who was trying to suggest that Canada wouldn't make target unless we were approving vaccine candidates that no other country has approved. And then he then had to walk that statement back. I'd like to have the ministers here to get to the bottom of that. So with deep respect and humbleness, I submit the motion as put forward in the 1064 notice. Chair, if you rule it out of order, I will be challenging you on that ruling because I believe that you would be ruling it out of order based on pedantry, not based on the Canadian public interest. And I would encourage all of my colleagues to ensure that your ruling was overturned. We need to have the ministers here. We need to get some answers from the pharmaceutical companies on vaccine supply because we need a path forward. I would not feel comfortable as a vice chair for the Standing Committee on Health or as a member of Parliament or as a Canadian if we were doing anything less. This is what we need to do over the next month as a committee, is put differences aside and get to the bottom of this. And for those of you who are Liberal Party members, I have had moments where I have had to think about what is in the best interest of my constituents, not necessarily in the best interest of my political party. I would really encourage you to think about that in this moment. There is no logical reason why the ministers of health and procurement should not be coming before the Federal Standing Committee on Health in this moment of time. So I'm hoping we can dispense with this motion, that we can support it, that we can schedule things out, and that we can move forward with getting some answers and some hope for Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rempel-Garner. I'd just like to respond to a couple points you made. This meeting was not called by the Liberals, it was called by the chair. And you mentioned that the committee is empowered to change its mandate and to set its own tasks, and that is normally the case. However, we are also bound in this instance by the order of the House, which overrides those particular freedoms. And it is my job as the chair to attempt to maintain the integrity of the that motion and to enforce it as well as can be done. So while I certainly share your view that it is important that we get the ministers before us and have made suggestions that I think would make that possible, under the particular constraints of the House motion of October 26, I don't see how we can do that, except as I have proposed earlier. So in that respect, I'm obligated to find that the particular that this motion as proposed, as moved, is unreceivable.
I challenge the ruling.
Thank you. Understood. So the question is, shall the decision of the chair be sustained? If you vote yes,
no,
then you agree with you're supporting the decision of the chair. If you vote no, you're voting to overturn the decision of the chair. So, Mr. Clerk, I would ask you to conduct a roll call vote.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Kellaway?
Yes.
Mr. Pawlowski?
Yes.
Ms. Sidhu?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mr. Barlow?
No.
Mr. D'Entremont?
No.
Mr. McGuire?
No.
Ms. Rempel-Garner?
No.
Monsieur Thériault?
No.
Mr. Davies?
No.
So, yeas pour 5, nays contre 6, 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee. Since the committee considers this matter to be receivable, the motion stands. However, I think I'm still obligated to try to fit this into the requirements of the House motion. And since paragraph B does not pertain here, that brings paragraph T operative. Paragraph T provides that each party has a right to submit 1 witness per 1-hour meeting and 2 for a 2-hour meeting. As noted, this doesn't really fit when we're inviting ministers. So this cannot be met in the case of ministerial appearances. This is a right, however, that the parties have, not an obligation. So they're not obligated to submit that number of witnesses. So the parties can agree to waive their right, but this would require that the motion be agreed to unanimously. So on that caveat, that is my ruling that this motion will need to be have unanimous consent to pass.
I challenge your ruling.
Understood. I'll put it to the committee. Mr. Clerk, if you would please conduct the vote.
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Kellaway,
Oui.
Mr. Polowski,
Yes.
Miss Sidhu,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Barlow,
No.
Mr. D'Entremont,
No.
Mr. McGuire,
No.
Miss Rampel Garner,
No.
Monsieur Thériault,
No.
Monsieur Davies, Mr. Davies.
No.
So, yeas pour 5, 5, nays contre 6, 6.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee. Frankly, no surprise there. Although I do feel I have fulfilled my obligation to enforce the House motion as well as I could. So we will now undertake debate on the motion as Ms. Rental has proposed. Ms. Rempel Garner has proposed it. And we now have hands showing up on the participants list. That seems to be working now. So for points of order, I will ask people to sing out verbally and we'll try to keep track of those. For speaking order in the debate, I would ask people to use the raised hands function unless that continues to not work for any of you. So first up, I have Mr. Davies. Please go ahead, Mr. Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And once again, it's good to see everybody back. I hope everybody had a chance to relax and wish a happy new year to everyone. I'm going to speak in favor of the motion. You know, if I just get right down to the chase here, I don't want to comment on events that have just been ruled upon, but really we're here because it's Monday and up to now we haven't heard anything from the chair about what the proposed schedule would be. And you know, I heard the chair reference that this Friday would be doing the mental health. Well, I haven't seen any notification of that. And I think one thing that we all share is a sense of urgency. And I would have hoped that last week we would have received a proposed schedule of meetings from the chair that allowed us to be meeting today and this Friday and next week in an orderly way so that we can get right to the business, but that didn't happen. I also want to point out that a Section 106 meeting is an extraordinary meeting. I think it's a prerogative of any 4 members of this committee to sign such a letter and cause us to meet within the prescribed time period, and that can be any time. And with great respect to the chair, that operates in addition to the normal business of the committee. It doesn't contradict any motion that's previously been passed in any way at all. So I find this motion in order. So the real question is, you know, what does this motion do? Well, what this motion does is it calls the ministers before this committee, and I think it gives them until February 5th, which I think is respectful. I mean, I'm open to suggestions. I know the ministers are busy, but it's January 25th today. So that's, you know, it's a good 10 days from now. And I think I speak for all members of Parliament and every Canadian to say that we're extremely anxious about the state of vaccines in Canada. Now, governments do what governments do, and the government may try to, try to put as I guess uh, positive a picture as possible. But the fact is, we're receiving no vaccines this week, and receiving 79,000 vaccines next week. The United States last week vaccinated an average of 1.1 million people a day. We haven't even vaccinated 800,000 people in Canada to date. So we have production issues. I want to also point out that this morning there's disturbing news out of the EU that they are thinking about proposing export controls on vaccines manufactured in Europe. So when the government blithely says, well, this is just a temporary disruption, don't worry about it, well, there could be other problems that are coming. And the fact that this government has not released a single word of a single contract it signed with 7 vaccine manufacturers leaves us in the dark on this. And I think all Canadians deserve to know what's going on as much as possible. And I think the ministers have an obligation to come to our committee and address this. The other thing I like about this motion is that it proposes a way forward. I do think there's a couple of, I'm open to some finagling of the finessing, I should say, of the dates. But the way I read this motion is Monday, hence, we have our 4th meeting on mental health, which was the final meeting of the Liberals' priority on the COVID study. So that takes care of next Monday. The following Friday is when we begin the first meeting of the Conservatives' priority, which is on vaccines. By the way, I still think we need to pass as a committee the assessment of how many meetings we will attribute to that. Ms. Rempel-Garner's motion mentions 4, but actually we do have to formally decide that. I personally will support 4 meetings. And that leaves us with the question of when we actually schedule the ministers if they have to appear before February 5th, which is next Friday, as the motion suggests. That would mean we'd have to have the ministers here between next Monday and next Friday. I'm not going to move this at this point because I want to hear what my colleagues have to say about this, but it would make sense to me to reschedule this a little bit by saying this Friday is the 4th meeting of the mental health theme of the COVID study, and then we begin the Conservatives' first day of vaccines on Monday, and then we have the ministers come, invite them for the following Friday to give the ministers the maximum amount of time to come. I'd be interested to see what Ms. Rempel-Garner feels about that, if that's a friendly amendment or if she feels strongly about that. But I don't see in the motion what we're doing with this Friday. And given the urgency that she so eloquently spoke of and that I think we all feel, I would like to use this Friday if at all possible. And then I guess the final point that our motion does, I think, is positive, is that it gives a deadline for us submitting witnesses for the vaccine component of the study. And I think it's the 28th, January 28th, which gives us several days to submit, what amounts to 4 witnesses, because we each get 1 witness per meeting, assuming the committee agrees that we'll allocate 4 meetings to the vaccine part of the study, which I personally will support. I think most of us will, because we all know how important vaccines are. So those are my thoughts on why I support the motion, and I would support it the way it's presently written, but I think my suggestion of utilizing this Friday and putting some shape to these meetings makes sense, and I'm interested in hearing my colleagues' thoughts on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. I would point out that at no time did I indicate that the 1064 was inappropriate or out of order. And I should note that although I had thought the notice had gone out, that we had scheduled for this coming Friday the last meeting on the mental health portion of the study, as I mentioned in my previous remarks. We'll go now to Mr. Thériault. Monsieur Thériault, allez-y, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Without repeating what my colleague has already said, the fact remains First of all, I wanted to acknowledge my colleague's initiative to call this meeting tonight, because in the organization of our work, we have this obligation to act quickly. And if 4 colleagues had not signed and called today's meeting, we wouldn't be here trying to organize our work and swiftly. Because, Mr. Chair, and I'm surprised that you didn't mention that in your preamble, that a new fact came up after we sat. And during the break, we heard that there was going to be a lack of vaccines, that they would be back-ordered. And we know that with today's crisis, the only light at the end of the tunnel is to be able to vaccinate people as quickly as people, and especially those most vulnerable, and especially the first-line workers. So there are restrictive measures that are in place, namely in Quebec, that and on the territory, it's very restrictive. We have a curfew, and we're 1 hour away from that curfew. And it's important that, as of tonight, get our work organized. Yes, the House could not presume that there would be an agreement, obviously, but technically, from the moment we were able to say that we would drop partisanship and we would have a hybrid government, well, then it's absolutely apropos to say as quickly as possible that as soon as Parliament begins to sit again, that we meet and we organize our work. And the motion that's been tabled by my colleague, Madame Rempel, is a motion that is only trying to organize our work in view of the motion that was adopted in the House. And she was careful to not put pressure on our Liberal colleagues that we begin that study of the motion by studying the impact of the mental health crisis. And she was also eloquent enough to say that if everyone wanted, we could go directly to the vaccine question, which is the priority, the urgent priority. She gave members the choice. So in this motion, I see a will and to organize our work and to organize it so that we won't be losing any time. And that's why I support that motion. And she says in that motion that the question of vaccination, and we knew that it was everybody's priority before the break, but this would be the priority that was brought forward by the Conservatives. And if there is a break in supply and we're having a problem with the scheduling, I want the government to be able to tell me quickly whether it will commit to the vaccine objectives. Will they be attained, yes or not? Will they commit to that on their honor towards all the constituents of Quebec and Canada, so that we be able to ask questions very quickly to the ministers in charge of health and procurement. So what I gathered from the motion is that as of next Monday, we could begin our work for 4 separate sittings. So we voted. We rejected your interpretation when you said that it was out of order. But I salute the initiative of my colleagues, and I want to reassure my colleagues that this crisis is significant enough.
Pour qu'on puisse, par moment, se laisser aller à faire de la politique partisane. Et à aucun moment.
There were too many deaths for us to be partisan. I will never give way to that kind of partisan behavior. I want to reassure you. So it is in good faith that I'm doing this. First of all, I'm really happy that we're discussing this so that as soon as the House starts, we can start with this and that we continue the study, the different studies of this committee, so that we can get more clarity about vaccines. So that is why I voted for. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Thériault.
Thank you, Mr. Thériault.
Mr. Fisher, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to thank all the members that have spoken so far and the mover of the motion for recognizing the importance of this topic. We recognize the importance of this topic when Mr. Davies, in his brilliant moment of bringing us all together, brought forward something that we all supported. So, not knowing the Fridays and the Mondays and all the different dates, I was under the interpretation and the expectation that we would begin studying vaccines on Monday. Perhaps that's not the case, but I do think it's something that we all agreed that we need to study. No one on this committee, since we've formed, has ever voted against having the ministers come to this committee. I think we all, and I see some heads nodding, I think we all know that we want to have the ministers here, and I do believe we all want the ministers here to speak on the topic that Ms. Rempel-Garner has brought forward today. Mr. Chair, I'm not exactly sure how I can get, I know we can't have a back and forth between members, but was there in the motion the intention that this would be one of the up to 4 vaccine meetings, and that this would represent a culmination of all of the parties' witnesses for that particular meeting? Mr. Chair, I guess I have to ask you that question if that's the case.
Mr. Fisher, the motion is silent on that. I think if that's something you wish to clarify, that's something you should amend the motion to take care of.
And it may not need to be amended. I would like to ask Ms. Rempel-Garner if that was their intention, that the vaccine meeting with the ministers, whether it's the first one or the second one, hopefully the first one, whether that would be one of the up to 4 that the committee determines. I mean, I think we're all going to support going to the maximum on this. So is that to be, and I know, Mr. Chair, it's unusual to ask another member, but is that the intention of the motion, that this would count as one of the up to 4 meetings that this committee is choosing to do as its next study and has already chosen to do that?
Ms. Rempel-Garner, do you wish to respond to this?
Sorry, I apologize that that's probably not that appropriate to ask that question. Sorry.
That's okay. I guess I would just respond with a question to the parliamentary secretary, given that he has responsibility for helping the government to set its legislative agenda. Does the government feel that 4 meetings, including a meeting with the minister, is adequate for Canadians to understand why in a situation where I have the floor?
Where no, you don't. I have the chair. I'm the chair. I have the floor. You're not called upon to engage in a debate. You're called on to respond to Mr.
I am responding. You might not like what I have to say, but I am responding.
Well,
Chair.
in my view, it's debate. And we'll go back to Mr. Fisher. Mr. Fisher, please carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Part of Mr. Davies' motion, the unanimous motion that we passed, required unanimous support to go over 4. So I'm just, again, trying to seek some clarity. Perhaps we would support unanimously to go more than 4. I don't know. I'm not certain at this
Mr.
point.
Chair, point of order.
Mr. McGuire, on a point of order, please.
Yeah, you know, I get that Mr. Fisher has asked a reasonable question in regards to what the meetings would be used for. I think it would be just as reasonable to have had an answer on that from my colleague, Ms. Rempel-Garner, if the question was asked, and it was. And even though I get that there, and Mr. Fisher indicated that it's probably not the right protocol, but you know, it's just as right a protocol to have a response because we just went back into it with Mr. Fisher's comments again, and I think it's appropriate then for Ms. Garner to ask him a question as well, and to get a reasonable answer, given that they are the government that's setting their work agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Regeyer. Ms. Rempel Garner was called upon to answer a question on a point of information from Mr. Fisher, not to ask her own questions. So we'll carry on with Mr. Fisher. Go ahead,
I
please.
challenge your ruling, Chair, because I kind of feel like it's slightly, as a woman, I get cut off a lot, and I kind of feel like this is slightly misogynistic. So I challenge your ruling on the ability for me not to speak in response to a colleague's question.
I guess that's appropriate. Mr. Chair, is it appropriate to challenge such a ruling? Sorry, Mr. Clerk.
I was going to say you are the chair.
Yeah.
I could just move an amendment, Mr. Chair. Sorry.
Well, at this point, we have
it's
possibly
on the floor.
we have a possible appeal of a ruling.
Well, she appeals a ruling by the chair, so yes, she could. She can do it.
Okay, very well. Thank you, Ms. Rempel Garner. So the question then is, shall the decision of the chair be sustained? Mr. Clerk, if you would, please.
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Kellaway,
Yes.
Mr. Pawlowski,
Yes.
Ms. Sidhu,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Barlow,
No.
Mr. D'Entremont,
No.
Mr. McGuire,
No.
Ms. Rempel Garner,
No.
Monsieur Thériault,
No.
Mr. Davies.
No.
So
Well,
yes.
thank you all. So thank you, Ms. Clerk. Yeah. So Ms. Rempel Garner, you may continue with your response.
Thank you to my colleagues for letting me speak. It's nice. So thank you. Thank you to Mr. Thériault and Mr. Davies. I appreciate it. In response to Mr. Fisher's question, as he's the parliamentary secretary and he's responsible for setting the government's legislative agenda, or assisting in that with regard to health, I would ask him in response if he feels that 4 meetings, including a 2-hour meeting with the ministers, is adequate for the committee to dispense with issues that are being raised by provincial governments, like what is the vaccine delivery schedule, or as the parliamentary secretary to the Treasury Board raised on CTV today, he didn't know or presented erroneous information that perhaps the government was banking on the AstraZeneca vaccine being approved, or Johnson & Johnson. If it's adequate to have vaccine manufacturers come before committee and discuss terms of contracts. I would think that, and just to answer my colleague's question, the 106.4 procedure allows the committee to determine different meetings, and the ministers are being asked here to come under the auspices of the emergency situation that Canada is facing. So I would like to have the ministers come here as soon as possible, and the chair can determine what date that is within the bounds of this motion. And I would just ask my colleague if he feels that we should limit debate on procuring vaccines, which is possibly the only way out of one of the greatest public policy challenges that Canada has faced in some time. But I'll let the Liberals and the parliamentary secretary, the government rep, determine or perhaps answer that question if the party feels that we should be limiting debate on vaccines at this particular juncture in our nation's history. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rempel Garner. So Mr. Fisher, you still have the floor. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that clarification, Ms. Rempel-Garner. I will move a motion, an amendment to one of the points in your motion, Ms. Rempel-Garner. Invite the Minister of Health, and just amend this line, the Minister of Procurement and their officials to appear before the committee for no less than 2 hours each regarding all matters related to Canada's COVID-19 vaccination strategy as the committee's first witnesses on the topic of vaccines, with the number of committee meetings to be determined by unanimous consent, and that this meeting occur no later than February 4th, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. We have an amendment on the floor. Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Well, I will just for a second, I'll speak to the amendment. I think that gives the motion, which is it's a good motion. It just gives a little bit of clarity, and then it also gives us an opening to allow us to have a conversation as a group and as a committee on how many meetings we want to have as a group, rather than have any one particular member from any one particular party make the decision on how many meetings we would have.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. So once again, we have a motion, an amendment on the floor. Is there any discussion on this amendment? So I have a number of hands raised. They are, I expect, raised in regard to the original motion. We have Mr. Killory. Did you wish to speak on this particular motion or on this amendment?
It was so long ago. No, I just, I think I'll forego for another time, other than to say this, is that number one, and look, we've all said this because we live it, our constituents live it, we have family members who are living in it, people that are separated because of it. I don't know of anybody in my short time in Parliament that puts party before country. So my hope is that we can stop that verbiage, because it's not accurate for anybody on any party. When it comes to having the ministers come, I like the idea of having them come at the same time. A lot of times when we have ministers on separate occasions, we get to ask a question, but because that minister's not there, it goes back to staffers. And to be able to look at the ministers in question, those key ones at the same time sooner than later, is important to every parliamentarian. It's important to every Canadian. And that's why we're here. And it's a good discussion to have and an important one to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Killory. Mr. Van Bynen, did you wish to speak to the amendment?
Yeah, if I could just hear the amendment one more time.
Sure. Mr. Fisher, would you mind restating the amendment?
Sure. Thank you. Invite the Minister of Health, the Minister of Procurement, and their officials to appear before the committee for no less than 2 hours each regarding all matters related to Canada's COVID-19 vaccination strategy as the committee's first witnesses on the topic of vaccines. Then what else did I say after that? And that the committee determine when the committee determines how many meetings, I can't remember exactly how I worded it, I didn't write it down, we would hold on that topic, because that's something that we would determine as a group, and that this meeting occur no later than February 4th, 2021.
You mentioned in the original amendment that such a vote would have to be unanimous?
Right, as per Mr. Davies, yes, that's
correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, I, for one, I'm eager to see the ministers come forward, because I think that's an important part for us to be updated on, and the sense of urgency that's being expressed, I share that. And I'm sure that the ministers themselves are eager to have this conversation and to bring us up to date. I don't agree with the statement that said that we should be acting in the best interest of the party, or that we should act in the best interest of our constituents. I believe that each and every one of us acts in the best interest of our constituents, and that goes well beyond any party line. So I don't agree with that statement, and I don't think that statement should be permitted to stand without being challenged. I will be supporting this motion, this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Van Bynen. Ms. Sidhu, if you please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly support the amendment as moved by my colleague, Mr. Fisher. I would also like to comment on the matter we are discussing today later on, but absolutely no issue with the minister reporting to our committee. We all want to hear from our minister the hard work they are doing for Canadians.
Thank you, Ms. Sadu. Dr. Pulowski, if you please.
Yes, I support the amendment. This is one of a number of amendments that basically comes down to this. I think Friday we do mental health, and Monday we start the vaccine study with calling the two ministers. That's it. That's all our amendments amount to. Nothing more complicated. We don't have to drag this out. You're starting to make me look back to my work in emergency room and doing fecal disimpactions with with regret. I prefer that than doing these procedural wranglings that are going on and on over this kind of stuff. This is simple. If you guys really want to come to an agreement, we're just asking, basically, our amendments are small. If you're really interested in cooperating, getting this done, which we totally agree. I mean, vaccines are the #1 issue facing the country right now. We should be studying it. We should be in the substance of it, not arguing over procedural things. So what are suggested amendments, which are meant to kind of make this consistent with the House motion, are relatively minor. It is, again, like I say, we just finished the mental health study. We start the vaccine study. The ministers are part of the vaccine studies. It's not more complicated than that. And if we really want agreement, then let's do it and let's go home and get back to our families.
Monsieur le Président, je voulais pas interrompre.
Mr. Chair, I did not want to interrupt my friend Marcus but unfortunately, I did not receive the translation. I would like us to solve the issue of translation once and for all, because it doesn't really make any sense at all.
Monsieur Thériault, je regrette la faute de la traduction. It's not something I can solve immediately. It's a problem that we will have to work out over time. Please do feel free to intervene at any point when you are not getting translation. I do apologize for that. We will continue now with Ms. Rempel-Garner, please.
I'm waiting to speak to the main motion.
Thank you. Mr. Davies, please.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody for their interventions. I have such great respect for all of my colleagues, particularly Dr. Pulowski, but I share so much of the same perspective on him. But I do have a couple of small disagreements with his last comment that I think are important. Just from a structural point of view, it's been said that time is the most valuable currency in Parliament. I guess next to majority votes. Government generally win the votes at the end of the day in a majority, but the opposition, we have time. And again, I'm going to point this out again. The Liberals hold a chair in this committee, and if they had come before this committee with a nice schedule for the next 4 weeks, they would have been able to propose all sorts of things, including starting the COVID study on Monday and proposing that their witness that they're entitled to have first would be the ministers. But they didn't do that. And so we're left here with a vacuum that Michelle Rempel-Garner has filled. Now, the issue here is a 106 meeting is an extraordinary meeting. That's what the motion is here today. This isn't a motion to schedule the first meeting of the COVID study and to allocate the witnesses. It's to have a meeting with the ministers come at that is extraordinary. That's over and above anything else we're doing here. Now, if the Liberals would have wanted the ministers to be the first witnesses in 4 meetings, they could have and should have moved that. Now that you're moving it this time, you're moving it as an amendment to this main motion, what Liberals are effectively doing is trying to make the ministers everybody's witness, which is contrary to the main motion that we passed in the House of Commons. So I agree with Dr. Pulowski that there's a very simple fix here for all this. If we really care about the urgency, which we all do, and we want quit getting mired in procedural wrangling, here's the answer. Friday we schedule the 4th meeting on mental health. Monday we start the first meeting on the COVID vaccines, and we get in our witnesses by this Wednesday, and we call the ministers the following Friday, and that's not a meeting that is one of the 4 meetings of the vaccine study. That's the extraordinary 106 meeting. And to illustrate why that wouldn't work is when the ministers come, I don't know who said this, maybe the chair said this, maybe it was Mr. Fisher who said this. The ministers they're not anybody's particular witness. They are the minister. And so, ministers come, that's why they don't come with other witnesses. It's why they come with staff. It's why it's a separate kind of meeting that is conducted out of respect and in consideration of the special role that they occupy. They're not just any other witness. They're the minister who's in charge of things. And that's entirely different from the 4 meetings that I'm envisioning on vaccine, where we're calling scientists and epidemiologists and emergency room docs and infectious disease specialists and maybe Pfizer and people who can tell us things on that. So I am adamantly against using one of our 4 special meetings on COVID to hear from stakeholders in the Canadian public that we normally don't hear from, and waste one of those meetings hearing from the ministers. Now, in terms of ease, I could turn this around on the comments that were just made, which is, what's the problem with having 5 meetings on vaccines? Like, are we really wasting time worried about that? No, I don't think I see Mr. Fisher shaking his head. No, we all agree with that. So let's just get down with it. Let's get this done and finish off that important mental health aspect that Mr. Van Bynen championed on Friday. Let's start COVID vaccines on Monday with each of us with our 1 witness out in congruence with our original motion. And let's get the ministers here on the following Friday. By the way, the other reason I think the ministers should come the following Friday is it gives them more time. Every time we call the ministers, we are made aware of how tight their schedules are. And I respect that. You want to give the ministers as much time as possible to rearrange their very busy schedules. And so by giving them, next Friday, that gives them, almost 2 weeks to get ready to come to committee. So I think what I just said is it's a compromise that meets everybody's objective, and I think we should just pass it and get on with it.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. We go now to Mr. McGuire.
I, like others, are waiting for the first motion, Mr. Chair, so move on.
Okay. Ms. Sadu, if you please.
Mr. Chair, I want to speak on main motion.
Very well. Mr. Kellaway, I have you on the list next again. Are you there for the main motion?
No, I just wanted to kind of reiterate, Don, thank you. I think if we have 4 meetings on vaccines and we have the ministers separate from that, that just makes all the sense in the world. And we're here to ask questions, learn more, and find out how do we enhance what we're doing and doing it better, and where those gaps may be and why they're there. That's what good parliamentarians do. So I've studied in my green book, and what I've learned from you folks, and it's what I see. It's what I see every day when we meet on this panel. So if we can get to that, look at, as Don said, mental health. We need to finish that. That's important. Many, if not everyone on this Zoom has talked about it either here or in social media on how important mental health is. It's important to us. Let's finish that. And then let's move on to the vaccines and find a time that the ministers can come that is outside the parameter of the 4 meetings that is dedicated to vaccines. It seems like there's common ground there. So my hope is that we can get to that ASAP.
Thank you, Mr. Kellaway. I think Mr. Dr. Pawlowski is next again. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm fine with Don's suggestion as to this not being one of the meetings on vaccines. I think that's consistent with the amended motion. We don't determine the number of meetings that we're going to record to vaccines. So I think that is consistent with the amendments, and I'm fine with 5 meetings on that subject. So I support the amendment in that I think it's consistent. Or well, hold on. I'll say, okay, no, okay, so it is inconsistent with the amended version. So yeah, okay, I agree with you, Dawn. So I guess we're gonna have to vote against our own amendment then if we're gonna agree on that. So.
Thank you, Dr. Kellaway. We have now next Mr. Fisher, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and you know, I was really trying to find a way forward, and Dawn again came up with a good suggestion that is amenable to the committee, and that's what's most important. I will support my motion because I put it on the floor, but I'm content with moving in the direction of that was outlined by Mr. Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. D'Entremont, do you wish to speak on the amendment or on the main motion?
No, on the main motion, please.
Okay. Mr. Van Bynen, did you wish to speak on the amendment or the main motion?
I wish to speak to the amendment, and just to clarify and move things on, I would add shortly after reference to by unanimous consent, I would like to add which is hereby provided, and that way we consent to the extra day. Sorry. Yep. So that way we acknowledge that 5 meetings is the extra meeting is there, and we provide the consent. And so I guess I just say let's move on, as everybody is eager to do on this portion.
So the suggestion you make to add that to would require a sub amendment. However, I think it would be incongruous to have a motion that requires only majority support to attempt to establish that unanimous consent has been achieved. So anyway, we will carry on. Unless you wish to move that sub amendment, we will carry on. Hearing nothing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the amendment? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to call the vote on Mr. Fisher's amendment.
Mr. Fisher?
Yay.
Mr. Kellaway?
Yay.
Mr. Polowski?
Abstain.
Ms. Sidhu?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mr. Barlow?
No.
Mr. D'Entremont?
No.
Mr. McGuire?
No.
Miss Rempel Garner?
No.
Monsieur Thériault?
No.
No.
I'm afraid not.
So we have 4 yeas, 4 oui, 6 nays, contre.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So Mr. Fisher's amendment does not carry. We'll carry on with the main amendment, sorry, the main motion. Ms. Rempel-Garner, I believe you're next.
Yes, I believe I'm going to cede the floor to my colleague, Mr. D'Entremont.
Very well. Monsieur D'Entremont, please go ahead.
Thank you. There's a couple of dates we'd like to have actually changed within the motion. So if you indulge me, I think Don brought these up as well. So you know, we're all falling to what Mr. Davies brings forward as well. So in the second paragraph, that the accordance with the motion previously passed by the committee, I think it puts in a date of February 1st to do the final meeting with on mental health. So rather than do that, why don't we bump that to January 29th? So that's actually so we can get the mental health out of the way. So that would require that change, and I think it's actually referred further down in the 4th paragraph as well, which is February 1st. So can I move that we change the date of February 1st to January 29th?
Thank you, Mr. D'Entremont. we have an amendment on the floor to change the date of the second bullet point of Ms. Rempel Garner's motion to January 29th. Is there any discussion on this amendment? So we have a bunch of hands raised in the participants, but I think they're all there for the main motion. So for this this amendment, I wonder if people could just wave at us on camera, and we'll see if there's anybody who wishes to intervene on this amendment. Seeing none, I think we can go to the vote. Mr. Chair, if you please.
Mr. Fisher,
Happy to support my fellow Nova Scotian.
Mr. Kellaway,
Yes to Chris.
Mr. Pawlowski,
Yes.
Ms. Sidhu,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Barlow,
Yes.
Mr. D'Entremont,
Oui.
Mr. McGuire,
Yes.
Ms. Rempel Garner,
Yes.
Monsieur Thériault,
Oui.
Mr. Davies,
Yes.
so 11 yeas pour 11, nays contre 0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So the amendment carries. Thank you, Monsieur D'Entremont. We go back now to the main motion, and I have next on the list is Ms. Sidhu. Ms. Sidhu, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, one observation, Mr. Chair. Early in our discussion, in politely permitting a colleague to receive a procedure answer, you are accused, you heard that it's a misogyny, and that accusation, as another colleague was scoring a political point. Both Mr. Chair and Mr. Fisher were extremely polite, and I call on all members to be respectful and not to accuse each other of misogyny lightly. It is not the first time such accusations are made. And I just urge to my colleagues, please be respectful. And we have this is the committee where we are working hard for Canadians. And the other thing, Mr.
Point of
Chair,
order, Chair, on decorum.
Ms. Rempel Garner on the point of order.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chair,
I would like to. I would like to.
Sorry, Ms. Sidhu, Ms. Rempel Garner has the floor on a point of order.
On decorum. I would like to point out, Chair, that misogyny is experienced through lived experience. And as a woman being shut down at committee when I was asked a direct question, having to be said that I wasn't being reasonable or not being polite is often a tool of misogyny. Unreasonable women is often an excuse used to silence women. And so my lived experience should not be invalidated by a colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rempel Garner. Ms. Sidhu, please carry on.
Chair, I just want to urge the committee members, and we all know Mr. Fisher was so polite, and Mr. Chair, so everyone noticing that, and that is what I just made a request. Let's be respectful to each other. And the other point I just want to make on the previous comment regarding the long-term care. I know, Mr. Chair, even in Ontario, I know from my riding, families and staffs are worried about how they are being administered by the provincial authorities, as both LTC home care and vaccine administration is a provincial jurisdiction. That is why we have provided over $1 billion to the provinces and territories to support them. And other thing I just want to share, Mr. Chair, as of January 21st, we have delivered over 1 million vaccine doses to the provinces and territories, so they can administer. So by September, we have procured the highest number of doses per capita in the world of something Mr. Rempel Garner said is the hottest commodity in the world right now. This is a delay in delivery, not of ordering the vaccine. Additionally, no other country has released their week-to-week delivery schedule. We did, but this is okay. The opposition perhaps missed this point, but let's work hard in this committee. And the other thing, a point I just want to make unanimously, we also want to listen from our ministers, and my constituents do want to hear from our minister. There's no problems. There's no, and as we schedule mental health study and then vaccines. And then as Mr. Fisher made that point, unanimously, 5, 4, more than 4, if meetings we want it.
Excusez, Monsieur le Président, il n'y a
Absolutely.
plus de traduction depuis 3-4 phrases. Je m'excuse.
I'm sorry, but there's no more translation and interpretation.
The translation, is there translation now? Is there perhaps a problem with Ms. Sadhu's microphone? Ms. Sadhu, if you could maybe raise your microphone. To Ms. Sadhu,
Faudrait demander
your
aux interprètes, Monsieur le Président.
Maybe you should ask the interpreters.
Ms. Sadhu, if you could raise your microphone up closer to your mouth, please. Yeah, thank you. I would ask if Ms. Sadhu could speak again, and if the interpreters could please advise whether or not they're able to continue the translation. Please go ahead, Ms.
So,
Sadhu.
sure, Mr. Chair, it is very important issue. Mr. Courier, now you have a translation, or you want me to repeat whole, like, or just to the small, like, from where you want me to?
You seem to be good to go, so please carry on.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, the whole, what I said, the whole thing I didn't need to repeat, or just from where you want me to?
I don't think you need to repeat from the beginning, but if you just want to finish up, we can carry on.
Yeah, the last point I made, we all want to listen the ministers reporting to our committee. My residents also want to hear from our minister. We don't have any issue, and and then as Mr. Fisher said that unanimously, how many meetings? Like maybe now we are all unanimously thinking 5, including ministers. So there's no problem at all. Let's work together on and let's do more hard work for all of our Canadians. And then misogyny comment, I made it. Let's be respectful to each other's. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Sadhu. I have Ms. Rempel-Garner next. Please go ahead. Ms. Rempel-Garner, you've gone now. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I'm good on the main motion.
Great. Mr. Davies, please go ahead. You're next.
Thank you. Well, just to make everything congruent, I think the final paragraph has to be amended to reflect that the vaccine component of our study will begin on Monday, February 1st. I think it presently says February 5th. And I'm not going to propose the language, but that last paragraph needs to be amended to make that clear, that we start COVID on 5th, and that we call the ministers on the 5th, and that is a separate meeting from the 4 meetings that we've agreed to have on vaccine. So I sense that that's what everybody wants, and there's an agreement on that. So I think if the clerk can just make those amendments to reflect the will of the committee, that would be, we can then vote on it. But I don't think it reads that way yet.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. Mr. Clerk, are you comfortable with receiving the amendment in this form?
Yes, and I will review the blues tomorrow, and I will do the minutes accordingly.
Right. Is everyone clear on Mr. Davies' amendment?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. McGuire.
I would speak to that. I guess we'd probably vote on this first, but I would also like to do make a slight.
Mr. McGuire, you've gone on mute. I missed the word after us.
There we go. Yeah, sorry, it happened there. Yeah, it would like after we move or after we discuss Mr. Davies' motion, I would like to also make a short amendment to clarify the issue of the 4 meetings plus the ministers.
Okay, well, leave your hand up there on the participants panel, and we'll come to you as soon as we're done with this amendment. Is there any further intervention on Mr. Davies' amendment? Is Mr. Barlow, are you? I see you raising your hand in it? No? Okay, good. That being the case, seeing no indication of interest to speak on this, I will ask the clerk to conduct a vote on this amendment.
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Kellaway,
Yes.
Mr. Pawlowski,
Yes.
Ms. Sidhu,
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen,
Yes.
Mr. Barlow,
Yes.
Mr. D'Entremont,
We.
Mr. McGuire,
Yes.
Ms. Rampel Garner,
Yes.
Monsieur Thériault,
We.
Mr. Davies.
Yes.
So 11 yeas, 11 pour, 0 nays.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So, Monsieur D'Entremont, your amendment carries. We go now to Mr. McGuire. Mr. McGuire, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to clarify, I think we've agreed to this mostly, but I just wanted to make an amendment there to that the meeting with the minister's appearance outlined in paragraph 1 not be included as part of the 4 meetings allocated to the theme on vaccines. I agree with Mr. Davies and others that have had this discussion already, and I just wanted to make sure that we had that as part of the motion and clarified it. Thank you.
So, Mr. Clerk, are you comfortable with receiving the amendment as stated?
I'm always comfortable, so yeah, sure.
Okay. Are we clear? Is the committee clear on the amendment? Is there any discussion on the amendment? I have Mr. Davies a hand up on the side panel. Do you wish to speak to this amendment?
Yes, just briefly, I'm happy to support it, but to be frank, it was part of my motion, I thought. I mean, just to be really clear, what I think we're agreeing to is Friday is mental health, Monday is the first day of our COVID component, of which we're going to have 4 vaccine meetings. That's the first one. We have our witnesses to get in by this Wednesday. We're having the ministers come next Friday, and that does not count as one of the 4 vaccine meetings. And then so that means we'll schedule 3 other vaccine meetings after Monday. Not kind of. So the only reason I point that out to Mr. McGuire is that that's what was part of my motion. So, but if it's helpful to clarify, if it requires another amendment, I'm happy. But I just think we have to all be on the same page on this.
So thank you, Mr. Davies. Mr. McGuire, are you comfortable with that? And if so, do you wish to withdraw your amendment? And otherwise, we'll carry on and vote on your amendment.
It's fine. I certainly appreciated Mr. Davies bringing forth the change there in to the February 1st date as well. And I'd just like to vote on it for clarity.
Yeah, no problem.
I appreciate Mr. Davies' comments there for sure.
No problem. So the amendment is still on the floor. I have Ms. Rampel Garner. Do you wish to speak to this amendment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And perhaps Mr. Davies will get on the floor again. I just wanted to ensure that when we are amending this, that we're not inadvertently creating a loophole for the ministers to give notice to the committee that, let's say they're not available on that particular date, that they don't come. So what I would like, the spirit of the original motion was to say by next Friday. And Chair, so that you then have the prerogative to work with the ministers. I mean, I'll meet at 2 in the morning if that's when they're available, but what I don't want to see happen is us give a prescriptive date in terms of the exact date that they have to be on. And then they say, oh, I have to tie my shoes or wash my hair that day, and then don't come. So because we've had this problem in our committee before. So I'd like to just say by that date, and then leave it up to you to find time within that within that particular schedule. What I don't want to see happen is us having to 106.4 this committee again and compelling them to come over the break week. I don't think that that's something that anybody wants here, but something that we probably will have to do if we're getting the sense that they're not willing to appear next week.
Thank you, Ms. Rampel-Garner. I should advise the committee that our ability to hold meetings, it depends on the availability of House resources. but it also is subject to the schedules of the ministers. We cannot, in fact, compel them to attend. So we can invite, as the motion suggests, but we cannot compel. So I'll go now to Mr. Killaway.
Yeah, just very quick to support the ministers by next Friday seems reasonable, regardless of what the ministers may be doing, whether they're in the gym or reading a book. I'm sure they'll make the time. Of course, they'll make the time to be there. They're the ministers of two portfolios that are critical. They will no doubt be there, and I'll make the strong assumption they will be. And I think next Friday seems reasonable.
Thank you, Mr. Kellaway. Is there any further intervention on any further discussion on the main amendment? Sorry, on Mr. McGuire's amendment. Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to conduct a vote on Mr. McGuire's amendment.
Mr. Fisher,
Support.
Mr. Kellaway,
Support.
Mr. Pawlowski,
In favor, yes.
Ms. Sidhu,
We.
Mr. Van Bijnen,
Yes.
Mr. Barlow,
Yes.
Mr. D'Entremont,
We.
Mr. McGuire,
Yes.
Ms. Rampel Garner,
Yes.
Monsieur Thériault,
We.
Mr. Davies.
Yes.
Yeas pour 11, nays contre 0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. McGuire's amendment carries. We go back now to the main motion as multiply amended. Is there any further discussion on the main motion? Mr. Davies, go ahead. Mr. Davies, you're muted.
Sorry, I just want to clarify that I've heard everybody say something correct about this, but we probably should just be, for the sake of clarity. I think Mr. Kellaway was bang on, but Ms. Rumpelsgarner's point is accurate too. We can never, and you too, Mr. Chair, we can't force ministers to come, of course, but when we invite them to come a week Friday, I think the motion should be clear, Mr. Chair, that you have the ability, the discretion to schedule them anytime up to Friday if that suits their calendars. And so I think you should invite them for next Friday, and if they can make it, great. But if it's more convenient for them on a day prior to that, then you should have the discretion to set down that meeting prior to that if that works better for them. So I just thought we should clarify that for the motion.
Thank you. Did you wish to make an amendment as such? I should point out that the chair has already that kind of discretion, but I would also suggest that if we're too prescriptive, if we require it be done before such a date and they're not available, it kind of leaves it open for after that date. I would suggest that we want to be able to invite them at such time as they're able to come. Anyway, did you wish to carry on with your intervention, Mr. Davies?
Well, those remarks leave me somewhat less certain. I know it's a bit odd because we're trying to schedule our meetings and we're trying to have the ministers come on a set date that we can't actually compel. But I'm prepared to operate in good faith that what the motion means is we want you to invite them to come next Friday, and hopefully they come. But if not, then the next option would be they come at a time prior to that. And if they can't, then I guess we would want them to come as soon as possible thereafter.
I certainly take that as implicit, but
okay.
That's what my desire would be. But I guess I caution about the motion being overly specific. Is what I'm saying. Anyway, is there any further intervention, Ms. Rampel-Garner?
Yeah, Chair, I would just say that motions with dates for ministers' appearances are fairly routine, and I wouldn't describe them as overly prescriptive. And look, I'll just be blunt. I would say by next Friday, that gives the ministers in the middle of a pandemic where people are dying every day and we don't have vaccines 2 weeks to come before the Standing Committee on Health. if we get the sense that as committee members that is not going to be the case, that they won't be able to fulfill that basic parliamentary function, then I suspect there will probably be some ramifications from the opposition on that. So I would encourage you in your role of chair to perhaps communicate that to the ministers in terms of their understanding of what the gravity of this invitation would be should it pass.
Well, thank you, Ms. Rempel-Garner. I can assure you that in my role as chair and as a parliamentarian, I certainly will always stress to the ministers how important their interventions are. And I'm totally confident that they themselves know as well. However, we are not, all my point is that my point wasn't the specification of a given date, but making it too prescriptive, requiring only that it be before that date, and not allow that it might have to be after. But it doesn't. I'm certainly willing to schedule a meeting whenever whenever the motion requires, and certainly we'll try to do so in such a in a expeditious and proactive manner. So thank you. Mr. McGuire, please go ahead.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to add to my Liberal colleagues there who have indicated the importance of this issue, that I think it's already in the original motion that it occur no later than February 5th, and there's an awful 2021, and there's an awful lot of 2-hour periods between now and then. So at whatever time it can be scheduled in that period of time, I'm fine with as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion on the main amendment? Sorry, the main motion as multiply amended. Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to conduct the vote on the motion as multiply amended.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Kellaway?
Yes.
Mr. Polowski?
Yes.
Ms. Sidhu?
Yes.
Mr. Van Bynen?
Yes.
Mr. Barlow?
Yes.
Mr. D'Entremont?
Oui.
Mr. McGuire?
Yes.
Ms. Rempel-Garner?
Yes.
Monsieur Thériault?
Oui.
Mr. Davies?
Yes.
So yes pour 11, nays contre 0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The motion as amended carries. Thank you all, and I would remind everyone that we have a mental health, the final meeting on mental health on Friday. I believe we are missing witnesses from the Conservatives and possibly from the Bloc. And I think Mr. Davies we may be missing one of your witnesses as well. So I would certainly advise you to get those witness requests in as soon as possible so that they can be approached and brought up to speed on the technology in time for the meeting. That having been said, the business of the meeting is concluded, and I thank you all. Meeting adjourned.